What are our fears or traps that are the biggest fears and traps that are hindering us from going deeper together as a church? So I don't know if this person meant they wrote Big C Church, but
Okay.
I don't know if they mean Christ Community Church, the American Church. I mean, there's so many different nuances to that. But what are some of the biggest traps or fears that are hindering us from going deeper? And I assume that word deeper is also one of those things that's always up for interpretation, but maybe deeper in the spirit and looking more like Jesus. I don't know.
Yeah, one of the traps that I think is common to the American church in general and Christ Community Church is the trap of affluence. So most of the church and most of culture has lived in poverty or persecution. And we're one of the few churches, the American church, that has had little poverty and little persecution. Now, I know there are going to be some people out there who say, well, there's some churches in poverty, there's some deep poverty. And it is, relative poverty. It's American poverty, but it's not like absolute poverty. There's very few people who are living on less than $1 or $2 a day in the United States. And so not a lot of poverty and not a lot of persecution. It's been interesting. Miss Choi was a friend of Christ Community Church who was from China a number of years back. And one of the things she told me she prayed when she visited, she says, I pray that you'll be persecuted more. And at first I was like, well, that's offensive.
Yeah.
And then I realized that she said, no, so much of the spiritual formation of the Chinese church has happened because they've experienced persecution. It really cuts through who are the people that are just consumers and who are the people that are deeply committed to Jesus. When the cost gets higher and when the benefits get lower, all of a sudden the wheat and the chaff get separated and the wheat remains. And then in the next chapter of the church, those people who are passionate and strong and lived through the persecution, well, they become a fire that spreads very, very strongly. So I think that's one of the dangers, is that we've experienced so little poverty and so little persecution. We're super comfortable. It's one of the reasons why I'm very passionate about us being a church of generosity, because so much of the church is impoverished and so many people haven't heard yet. The folks who are most likely to reach those who haven't heard is those who have the resources to be able to send people. We are in that advantaged position. And so I want us as a church to be the church who says we're going to be the generous church because it does two things. One is it helps us stay connected to the mission of Jesus when we're way too comfortable. But the other thing is it helps us to battle affluence. So one of the biggest things if you're going to battle affluence is to give money away. You got to give money away. You've got to say, I will not allow this to have power over my life. I'm going to not give in to the monster of more. I'm going to say yes to God, even when it causes a little bit of pain in my life because I can't buy that thing that I wanted or improve that thing that I wanted. And for our spiritual formation, that's one of the biggest antidotes, is that we become generous people and a generous church. I'll throw this in as just a little plug. As a church, we give away outside of the church doors about 30% of the resources that come in so that we can live out this value. And we challenge people in the church to also be saying, hey, figure out what your percentage is, give it away generously, give it away sacrificially, give it away joyfully. And it not only brings transformation in this world, it brings transformation to your soul.